Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is David Talbot. I'm Managing Director and Head of Research here at Red Cloud Securities, and I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on uranium today. We are going to hear from North Shore Uranium's President and CEO, Brooke Clements. Now, during today's webinar, he will provide an overview and outlook, and then we will take some questions. We will get to your questions as soon as we can. Please put them into the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can. Before we kick things off, first we need to discuss the fine print. During this North Shore webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I direct listeners to the forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of its corporate presentation. That can be found on the corporate website, northshoreuranium.com. For Red Cloud Securities, I'd highlight this this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. So please see our most recent research outlined on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on North Shore Uranium. Now, we have seen the uranium price turn about a week ago. They've risen to about $88.50 per pound now. So it's looking like things are turning up here a little bit in the sector. With that said, why don't I turn the floor over to Brooke to speak about the company. Brooke.
Thank you for that introduction, Dave. And good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I sure appreciate you joining us. I'm going to give you an update today on North Shore Uranium. We're a brand new uranium exploration company that just went public in November, and we have ambitious goals, and those are simply to make a significant uranium discovery in the Athabasca Basin and become a major force in uranium exploration. We have two great properties on the eastern margin of the Athabasca Basin, Falcon and West Bear, which have proven uranium exploration potential. We just completed our first drill program, and the results of that were encouraging, and we have a lot of other interesting targets to evaluate, and that's mostly what I'm going to focus on today. In our drill program, we got some sniffs of potential uranium-bearing systems, radioactivity, alteration, and things like that. So okay, this is our forward-looking statement, which Dave just mentioned. And just want to let you know that I will be making some forward-looking statements. We think the Athabasca Basin of Saskatchewan is the best place in the world to be exploring for uranium. There's a lot of exploration, development, and mining activity. At the end of last year, NextGen received its Saskatchewan permits for development of its Arrow project in the western Athabasca Basin, and that's the first such permit issued by the government of Saskatchewan in 20 years. Because more nuclear power is going to be required to address climate change, the price of uranium, the spot price of uranium has really gone up. It reached a high since 2007 of over $100 US a pound. Earlier this year, now, as Dave said, it's off a bit to 85. And one of the really important things to emphasize about the Athabasca Basin is that it's a real model for collaboration between the exploration and mining industry and communities. That's a real example that a lot of people look to in the industry. Next, please. We have a great team. I'll just check my mouse here. It just doesn't seem like I'm able to advance. Yeah, we have a great team. I'm a geologist with most of the last 25 years I've spent in the Canadian North in jurisdictions similar to Saskatchewan. I spent most of my career in diamonds, and I was fortunate enough to lead teams that made two pretty significant diamond discoveries, Renard in Quebec and Chidliak in Nunavut with Ashton Mining and Peregrine Diamonds respectively. I got a bachelor's degree in geology from Indiana University and a master's in economic geology from the University of Arizona. Jimmy Tom, one of our directors, was the exploration manager for Paladin Energy, and he has real significant experience in uranium exploration and development. Blake Steele, an advisor to the company, is a key member of the team, and he was president and CEO of Athabasca Uranium, who had in situ uranium assets in the Western United States, and they sold for 200 million Canadian to Encore Energy in 2022. And our team is rounded out by Dan O'Brien, Ben Meyer, James Arthur, and Doris Meyer. Next, please. This slide summarizes our share structure. We have 36.8 million shares outstanding and a market cap of about 5 million. We went public in November at a price of 30 cents. Unfortunately, our share price is off a bit since then. And we think our valuation offers great value for exposure to uranium exploration. This is a location map of the Athabasca Basin showing active mining claims in purple, active and inactive uranium mines in red. Right now, there are 2 active mines at the east side of the Athabasca Basin, Cigar Lake and McArthur River, and those 2 mines produce all of Canada's uranium, which makes Canada the second leading uranium producer in the world behind Kazakhstan. Recently, Denison and Orano announced that they're going to reopen the McLean Lake mine, which is also at the east side of the basin, in 2025. It's really amazing the level of claim staking activity in the basin. Just in the last couple months, a lot of claims were acquired at the northeast margin of the basin, including by Cameco and Orano. And our 2 properties, Falcon in blue and West Bear in orange, are at the east margin of the Athabasca Basin. We really like the east margin of the Athabasca Basin as a target. It's an area where there's proven uranium potential, and we think it's underexplored, and there's the potential to make a significant discovery. One of the things that we really like about it is if there's a discovery, it'll be close to the surface. Within the basin, a lot of the mineralization is pretty deep. For example, at Cigar Lake, they're mining at about 480 or 500 meters. McArthur River, 600 meters. And there is a lot of exploration within the basin for these deep targets as well, but that's pretty expensive exploration. Another thing to note is that ore from Cigar Lake is processed at the McLean Lake mill, and ore from McArthur River is processed at Key Lake. This cartoon shows kind of a model of Athabasca Basin mineralization. The red shows the ore. This is from Key Lake, which is 35 kilometers west of our Falcon property. And typically the ore forming fluids migrate from the basement along basement structures up to the surface, and they can meet the sandstone at the unconformity and pool at the base of the sandstone, which is shown in yellow on this slide. At Key Lake, they had both types of mineralization, that hosted in the basement and unconformity hosted mineralization within the sandstone. At Falcon, all of the sandstone has been eroded, so we are looking for these basement structures, which can be associated with EM or electromagnetic conductors. Next, please. This is an overview of our Falcon property. We own 4 claims outright, 12.8 thousand hectares. Those are shown in blue. And we also have an option to earn into an additional 11 claims, about 42,000 hectares from Sky Harbor Resources. Under the option agreement with Sky Harbor, we have an option to earn 80% over 3 years. That's by October 31st, 2026. And 3.5 million of that is exploration expenditures. And the deal is back end loaded. We only have 1 million in total net commitments by November 30th of this year. And we've met all the work commitment obligations under that. And we're well on our way to meeting the cash and stock commitments. Next slide, please. This is a location map of the Falcon property. It shows all the people holding claims around us. Falcon is in blue, and it's an active exploration area. Something to note are 2 grassroots discoveries made in 2021, which are kind of the model of what we're looking for. Basement hosted mineralization made by Baseload, their Accio discovery, and 92 Energy, their GMZ discovery. At both of those projects, where they have intersections of over 1% uranium, and they are expanding the footprint of those deposits by drilling as we speak. Basin Energy, shown there in yellow, is in the middle of a drill program right now. And one thing to point out is just a few kilometers to the east of our property, Sky Harbor Resources and Tisdale Energy are working on the Fraser Lake Zone B deposit, which is a pegmatite-hosted deposit with 7 million pounds of uranium identified in an inferred resource. And one thing to note is in December, Atha Energy, who's probably the biggest claim holder in the Athabasca Basin, they announced a merger with 92 Energy and their GMZ deposit, which is an illustration of merger and acquisition activity in the Athabasca Basin. So one of the things we have here is an excellent geophysical database, which is really what you need to find a new uranium deposit. Detailed EM surveys were flown in 2006, 2007, and 2013, and they're shown in blue, purple, and red. In 2022, we went out and flew a gravity radiometric survey over our 100% owned claims, and Sky Harbor also did the same kind of survey about the same time over most of the claims we are optioning from them. That new 2022 survey outline is shown in black. So that new data gives us kind of an edge or a new twist. Previous operators didn't have it in evaluating all the data. And one of the things I want to emphasize is how intense the exploration activity was in this area back in 2006, 2007, 2008, when the price of uranium reached an all-time high of 148 US a pound in 2007. People did all this background work. Those are really ambitious geophysical surveys in preparation of a long-term commitment to exploration in this area. And then, the price of uranium dropped, and, Fukushima came along in March of 2011. But the price of uranium had already started dropping in 2010, quite dramatically before the Fukushima disaster. So that you can imagine what that did to people's exploration budget. So mid-2000s, people really curtailed a lot of their ambitious exploration plans in this area. And we think now is a good time to take that charge up and use this data and find something new. This map shows all the drilling on the Falcon property. Drill holes are green circles, and also from the government database, the prominent EM conductors are shown in red. All drilling at Falcon was done between 1979 and 2008. In 2008, J&R Resources drilled 28 holes on the property along the EM conductor system, kind of an indication of their commitment to doing a lot of exploration. Their best intersection was at the EWA showing, where they hit 0.235% U308. And during that program, just off our property, they discovered the Fraser Lakes Zone B deposit. And any work they did in this immediate area after that was focused on that. They never really continued with their initial exploration plans. And that's what we're doing right now to give this property its due attention for exploration, because we think there's potential to make a new discovery. This map shows the EM data showing the prominent dominantly northeast trending conductors on the property. In a minute, I'm going to focus on the area in the red box where we did our drilling in March. And one thing to note on this is the power line going kind of northwest, southeast. It shows up as a prominent EM conductor. Another conductor system is a less intense system that's parallel to the major system where we did our work this year and kind of interfered with by the power line. We have a few compelling targets there, and you can see a photograph of the power line there. And the next slide is a close-up of the EM in that red box. It shows the 3 targets we drilled, P3, P8, and P12. We had a press release on March 20th summarizing the results of the program. We initially looked at about 20 potential drill targets, and to filter those, we looked at the character of the EM conductor, associated radiometric and gravity data. Sometimes gravity lows that aren't associated with lakes can indicate alteration associated with a uranium deposit. We also looked at magnetics, which can be used for structural interpretation. We looked at ground conditions, and to really, once we picked our final 3 targets to hone in on the drill collar locations, we did a process called Maxwell modeling, which gives you a 3D plate model of the conductor. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner of this slide, the plate models surrounding P3 and P08. It gives you a dip of the plate, and you can then plan how you use your drill. And that conductor system to the south of P3, we really think has a lot of potential. A lot of it is under lake, so it'll have to be evaluated by drilling next winter. And this map just shows the magnetics, and often magnetic lows can be associated with major structural corridors, which can be places where uranium deposits hide. And also you can see the 3 drill targets with larger cream-colored circles, and the 20 or so targets we looked at is in small cream-colored targets. And next there is kind of a Google Earth image just showing what the ground looks like in our 3 targets and the other targets that we looked at to pick our 3 drill targets. And you can see the trace of the power line going right through the property. And the purple circle, again, kind of outlines the area we looked at this year to choose our drill targets. And we drilled P3 and P8. And at those, we intersected the EM conductors more or less where we had modeled it. And we encountered elevated radioactivity, indications of fault zones, and some alteration. At P12, we had to abandon the hole before hitting the conductor depth because of blocky ground that caved in the hole and wouldn't allow us to finish the hole. This, just a few brief cross sections, and this is just preliminary information from the field. This is the P3 target, where you can see the projected plate representing the EM conductor and our drill hole. We drilled P03 to 230 meters and only 6 meters of overburden at the top. And at about 195 meters, we hit the zone where the conductor plate was supposed to be, and we got blocky fault zones, graphitic gouge, and right below it, some significant alteration, chlorite and silica alteration, and also elevated radioactivity up to 2695 CPS total count. And the next target, P08, we drilled and we encountered two kind of fault zones, one up near the close to the surface at 44 meters, and the other coinciding with the projected position of the Maxwell conductor plate. And we hit a graphitic fault zone at about 104 meters of projected plate depth. And there we saw some really significant bleaching and clay alteration and strong hematite and chlorite along fractures and some patchy silica alteration. Again, these are the types of things that can be associated with a major uranium deposit. Looking at this data, we're going to get our final results in about 4 weeks. And what we'll do is look at the EM conductor as a whole and decide if these indications of alteration are things that we want to chase one way or another, or higher up or lower in the section. And finally, P12, where we really didn't hit the projected conductor zone, which is in purple, highly fractured and blocky ground, which in and of itself may be indications of a significant fault zone or faulting. And we really like this area, so we definitely want to go back and re-drill this target or some others around it to hit this conductor zone. So to summarize the work we've done so far, this map shows our claims. It shows the 3 targets we drilled, the EM conductors, and in green, in purple is the area we focused on this year, but in green are some other conductors we're really interested in that we've studied, and we're going to be working on determining which of those are priority targets for follow-up, both in the field for prospecting, sampling, and things like that, and future drilling. One of the things this program did, I think it really validated our exploration methods. We had target zone where we thought we would hit the conductor. Our modeling was spot on for that, and we found some faulting and alteration. So it gives us confidence that when we go to address a target, we're going to hit the target zone. And right now we're prioritizing targets for future evaluation, which could include more work on the existing targets as well as new targets. And that would be in preparation for a future drill program, which could be either in Q4 2024 and or Q1 2025. And before I close with Falcon, I just want to show you one slide that pertains to the 4 100% claims that we have, that just gives you a little bit of a window into the type of evaluation we're doing to prioritize our targets. So we flew this area, and we flew these 4 claims ourselves when we were a private company in 2022. We flew it with gravity, radiometric, and magnetics. There was also existing EM data. We engaged Condor North Consulting to look at the published data, and they came up with 7 target zones, which are shown here in red, based mostly on the EM. We also engaged Earthfield Technology, a Houston-based group, they threw the radiometric and gravity data into the mix, and they picked 24 uranium prospects. And the Earthfield and Condor prospects overlap in 5 areas, and the 6 stars on the map represent targets that we want to go back. We want to go out in the field and look at and potentially target for drilling in the future. There's only been drilling at one spot on these 4 claims, and that's right at the south end of the claim block, where we have the D showing, where a vein with 1.2% uranium and 0.8% molybdenum was found. That's the only drilling that's been done to date. So that's a little window into the process of the work we're doing. There was a lot more previous work that we have access to through Sky Harbor on the claims to the south. So now I'm going to take you 90 kilometers to the northwest to just briefly summarize our West Bear property. You can see in green the outline of the Athabasca Basin. To the west of that line, there is sandstone cover. To the east, no sandstone cover. And you can see it's a pretty active neighborhood. We have Denison, ISO Energy, Standard Uranium, and UEC there. And of special note is the West Bear deposit that is held by UEC. They have a uranium reserve of 1.4 million pounds, U3O8. And as far as I know, the only cobalt nickel resource in the basin. And we're earning 75% interest in this property from Gem Oil. And the cost of that was $225,000 cash, $75,000 cash or shares, and $271,000 in exploration work. And we're getting close to meeting our commitments there. And the next slide just shows radiometric data from the survey we flew in 2022 here as well. And we did the same process here where we had Condor Consulting look at the EM, the published EM in MAG and Earthfield Technology, kind of evaluate the radiometrics gravity as well and come up with a bunch of prospect zones, which you can see as little green blebs. And right now our priority targets are the 3 targets in red selected by Condor, which overlap with Earthfield targets in 2 places. And the next slide shows the magnetics. And our first focus is going to be those 2 targets at the west end of the property. There's kind of a linear magnetic zone that could be indicative of some kind of structural zone that could trend up towards the UEC West Bear deposit. And finally, this slide just summarizes the drilling that's been done at West Bear in green circles. You can see the 2 targets, the 3 targets that we're focused on. There's really been no drilling, so we're really digging into the data to see if we can come up with a really good target that warrants exploration. And we think that Denison could have missed something out here. They drilled 4 holes in 2015. So that's it for the properties. And now this chart just kind of shows the history of North Shore. North Shore started as a private company, North Shore Energy, in 2022. We picked up our initial Falcon and West Bear properties then, and later in the year flew the gravity and radiometric survey. And in late December 2022, we started on a path with Cloverleaf Capital, who was a Canadian pool corporation working towards a qualifying transaction. We went public in November, and also concurrent with that, the Sky Harbor option deal was triggered, and we've been evaluating the targets we have on both properties for a while, and we just completed our first drill program this month, and we're looking to do lots more work in the future. So finally, back to just our share capital structure. And we think at our valuation, we offer attractive exposure to uranium exploration in Saskatchewan. And as Dave said at the beginning, the uranium sector looks to be at the beginning of a major bull cycle. We have some compelling targets, an area where there's already sniffs of uranium. And we think with our disciplined work, we have the potential of making a significant discovery with our experienced team. And I think that's it. Next slide. So thank you very much. Sure appreciate your attention.
Great. Thank you very much, Brooke. Great presentation. So we are now going to kick off the Q&A portion of the webinar. Reminder to everybody online, you can type your questions into the chat box. And Brooke, we already have a few questions here. I guess to start it off, what made North Shore Uranium decide to look for uranium in the Athabasca Basin?
Actually, when we started as a private company in actually the end of 2021, we wanted to be North America. We also looked at quite a few things in the U.S. We looked at the Thelon Basin as well, and we just felt that there were just a lot of it was with the uranium price just kind of booming. There were still it had all the available properties and opportunities really hadn't been fully picked over yet. And we quickly came to the Athabasca Basin as a good place to start. And we really liked the eastern side because there had been a lot of exploration activity there the mid-2000s, it had kind of stopped. There was a lot of data. And then once we got 2 properties, initially our 4 claims there, then we did the Sky Harbor opportunity became available, and we just felt that it was the best place to be, jurisdiction and opportunity to make a new discovery.
Yeah. So would you consider further M&A then, either within the basin or even elsewhere, like you said, even in the U.S.?
We would consider it right now, though, short term. We're really focused on, we think there's a lot of work to do on these 2 properties, and we're really focused on that. But actually, our openness to new opportunities is illustrated by the Sky Harbor deal. We had already started on the path to our qualifying transaction with Cloverleaf Capital when the Sky Harbor opportunity came along, and we got that. So yeah, we're open, but really focused on making sure we do these properties, give them their just attention.
Okay. And your company does have a lot of geological background and uranium background. Who's doing the work on the ground? Is it you? Is it Sky Harbor? How about your 100% project?
We are the operator, but we have engaged Axiom, who has a lot of people with uranium expertise to help us. Terralogic as well. They manage the exploration program. And 2 geophysical consultants, Condor and Earthfield. So right now we're as we grow and raise more money, we'll beef up our internal resources as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A question here, is the Geeky project the same old AGIP Geeky River property that was explored in the 1980s? Do you happen to know the answer to that? I don't.
Okay, so you're talking about the Basin Energy Geeky River. This whole area, I believe that, I forget the name of the company, it might have even been an oil company, but a massive land position was held there in the 80s, and that included our properties north. That could have been, I believe that was a Geeky River.
Okay.
But I'm not sure the boundaries of that, but I think it included, and there are massive, really old style EM and radiometric surveys flown. People kind of went out on the ground, did some prospecting, did a little bit of drilling, found some boulder fields and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But you do have 100% owned claims in this area as well, right? You have done a little bit of consolidation in the area, whether it's...
Yeah, Falcon, we purchased from a prospector, 4 claims totaling 12,800 hectares. And so, yeah, we do have 100% of that. And we have an option if we make we triggered if we made a discovery. We have an option also to earn 100% from Sky Harbor for $5 million cash, $5 million in shares.
Okay. So do you treat the 100% owned claims any different than you treat the option claims right now, either because of geological priority or, because of the claim, the spend that you need to do?
Right now, the Sky Harbor option claims kind of leapfrogged in importance over our 100% owned claims, even though we still are evaluating those. And that's because there were already some defined targets and some drilling. So there was much in the benefit of the help from Sky Harbor. There's already a lot more work, and we don't have any commitments other than assessment commitments up on our 100% owned. So yeah, work commitments as well.
Okay, so in Falcon, it's your flagship project. Would it be considered? I guess it is considered outside of the Athabasca Basin, right? There's no overlying sandstone. What are some of the pros of being out there beyond the limits of the sandstone?
Well, one thing is, any mineralization we find will be near the surface, and also I think another thing is it hasn't really been fully explored. People now are finding some of these basement-hosted uranium structures outside the basin. So we think, and it's all covered with glacial overburden, so we think there could be a major structure there that is identifiable through EM. It was kind of neglected after the modern EM methods were applied to the area, and something could be hidden where there's really no. In the 70s and 80s, back when it was the Geikie River property, people relied a lot just on prospecting and stuff like that. So we think, something that could be hidden.
Yeah. And this basement-hosted mineralization that you're after, you said, the host structures can be targeted using EM surveys. Have you completed any modern EM surveys before your drilling program, or are you relying on historical work?
We're still relying on the 2006, 2007, and 2013, which we think is really good data. If as we advance, that's 200-meter data. As we advance, we may end up targeting smaller areas for real targeted EM.
Okay. And how about off conductors, right? Because the faults or the structures are the key. EM just may mean there's graphite in the system that is or even pyrite in the system that you're targeting. But there's some of the discoveries in the last decade or so, like Rough Rider, are off conductor. So are you looking in those areas as well at this point?
Yeah, if you noticed on that Google Earth map, we've done a structural interpretation where we're starting with conductors are the very obvious thing, but we're actually prioritizing where we drill along the conductors now, cross structures. And then if you get a sniff of something potentially interesting like we have, one of the things that you'll be looking at, do you want to follow a structure away from a conductor?
Okay. Now, the Fraser Lakes B zone, it's a deposit that's located nearby, hosts about 7 million pounds, but that isn't really what you guys are looking for, right? Could you tell us maybe the difference between the mineralization that you want to hit and Fraser Lakes B zone?
The Fraser Lakes zone is a nice deposit, but what we're really looking for is a traditional basement hosted deposit. They're like everywhere in the basin. There are pegmatites everywhere, and some of those pegmatites have elevated radioactivity, which is a positive indication of uranium in the system. But our primary target is not a pegmatite hosted target.
Okay. But you already seem to be on something there. Holes P3, P8, they both hit those graphitic fault zones, anomalous radioactivity. How many of these targets did you test this winter, and will you follow up on those results, or are you going to expand your search to the next set of priority targets?
Yeah, our desktop evaluation over the next few months when we get our full results will be twofold. It'll be we explained two of the targets, and the third we drilled on. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite make it to the target zone, but we'll be looking at the drill results, the geophysical data as a whole, and the analytical results, and deciding, do we want to chase these targets that we've proven up or found interesting indications, or a brand new target? And I have a feeling if we're able to have an ambitious drill program, it'll be a mix, some brand new targets, but maybe chasing one of these things we drilled.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it looks like your next drill program, at least what you mentioned, looks like it might come next winter. Is that decision based on logistics? Can you do any drilling throughout the summer?
It could come in the fall as well, as early as the fall. There is, for helicopter support, this area is an area where you can access potential drill targets on the ground, but you really need to have a significant program to justify that, and that has to be done in the winter. But for the foreseeable, for at least the next program or two, we're going to be helicopter supported. So there is kind of a logistical window right in the middle of the summer, where you don't want to drill between October and February, where it's less than 12 hours of daylight, because you want to be able to have shift changes and stuff like that. So just because of the time, we'd probably be looking fall and or winter.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Your West Bear property, it's close to some uranium, nickel, and cobalt deposits and resources. Does being near that nickel cobalt change the way you approach exploration at West Bear?
Not initially, no. It might approach the attention we pay to the analytical results. But as you know, I think the cobalt nickel resource is underneath the uranium, so they hit it kind of on the periphery of the uranium deposit. So no, it doesn't change. We're primarily looking for uranium, but we'll keep our eyes open for cobalt nickel.
Okay. And I probably could have asked this question when we spoke about Falcon, but some of those nearby uranium occurrences or intercepts do have that anomalous moly or lead, sometimes copper, nickel, cobalt. Have you considered any of the soil surveys that might help pick up these associated base metals that maybe help target onto the uranium? As
we get specific on these 2 to 3 targets, I'm sure the first step will be to go to the field and collect some soil samples. Actually, Denison did a really ambitious boulder sampling program out there, and we have that data.
Okay, great. That's about it. Maybe wrap up with the final question. How much cash do you have on hand, and is this enough to cover your exploration plans for the rest of the year?
After the drill program, we're in the process of finalizing everything, but maybe $500,000, and we will need to raise more money before we go drilling again. Okay,
great. Well, Brooke Clements from North Shore Uranium, thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much. I sure appreciate it.
Hey, thank you everybody else for tuning in. Our next webinar is tomorrow. That's March 26th, when Taylor sits down with Strategic Resources. So have a great day, and thank you for supporting Red Cloud's webinar series.